Hello and welcome to Big Bandit Gaming. I'm your host Troy, and today we have Josh.
Hello.
Izayah.
Wham.
And Colton.
What up?
With the fancy desk.
I know. I got it for free too. I have so much room. I can put like 5 monitors up here if I want to.
You know, I'm looking at making a desk here soon, and I was thinking about like that shelf idea, like putting a big old shelf next to it. Part of that makes me happy. Yeah.
It's nice.
I know. Well, what I want to do is I want to get one of those like 42-inch OLEDs, and I want to make it my computer and my gaming screen all in one like desk. And
Ooh.
The more I plan it out, the more complicated and expensive it gets. So, not to mention the price of the monitor alone, I might have made the mistake of showing Sam the sticker price of just that 42-inch OLED. And I saw her eyes go wide, and I'm like, I will buy this at Black Friday next year.
Yeah, Black Friday in 2028, maybe.
Right now it's like $1,300. So yeah, but it's gonna be rad. Like everything can go into it. My Mac, my all 3 of my consoles will be 4K 120. It's gonna be sick and expensive, but sick. But yeah, I was thinking about one of those shelves, but it takes up a lot of space. Yeah, you got yourself a whole friggin' room. Yeah. All right. Me too. Right. Considering even to do this podcast, I make like a temporary desk at one of my workplaces.
I'm sitting on an ottoman in my bedroom. Like my laptop is on the ottoman.
You're literally in the bath with like the power cord and a laptop. You're just like one little move away. Just like, what happened to Josh? I don't know. Didn't know that was the last time we were going to record his last moments on Earth.
Oh, he's gone.
Making it work. I needed the privacy from my family.
No, it needs to be sadder than that. That's the case. You need to just be like sitting on the toilet, like a headset.
I'm like, I'm in the bathroom. Leave me alone.
It's like, it's been 2.5 hours. We've called an ambulance. All right. So today we are doing another Big Bandit Gaming Plays, our second one. If you joined us last time, we did Enslaved Odyssey to the West, and we have doubled the crew for this episode of Big Bandit Plays, which is exciting because we were saying before, that was like one of my favorite ones to record. So today we are looking at Inside. I almost said Limbo. Yeah,
I mix them up every time.
Yep. It was really hard for me to write the history section because I didn't know which game I was talking about at any point.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Which says
a lot about Limbo with a splash of red.
I think I saw when I was doing my research, they showed like some critics were saying one of them just called this Super Limbo. I thought that was kind of funny. Awesome. I'm like, it's so true. It is kind of Super Limbo. So speaking of Limbo, let me guys give you just like a brief history of Playdead. So Playdead is the studio that both made Limbo and Inside. And did you know Playdead launched their first game on the 360 in 2010? How many guys played Limbo?
I did.
I played majority, yeah.
Oh, you did? It's funny because you guys probably played more Limbo than me. I probably got like 30, 45 minutes in, and that's all I was ever able to get.
Really? You just didn't like it?
I don't know. It might have been I was just playing at a different time, but I you know what it was? I think it was too much trial and error, and I get really frustrated with games like that.
Funny that you bring that up.
Yeah, but it's weird because, well, it's not weird. I think Inside does that as well, but it's just so good that it kind of like it kind of makes me keep going in a way Limbo didn't. So
we can talk about it in a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. But that original game, it launched on 360. I don't know about you guys, but I consider Limbo to be one of like the godfathers of like indie games. I think a lot of that early 360 Xbox Live Arcade stuff, like we're talking like, you know, Super Meat Boy, Limbo.
Yeah. I remember going to GameStop and seeing like the Xbox Live Arcade cards for it. Like that was the first time I saw anything like that. I was like, oh, I can just get this card for this indie game? What's an indie game?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Bastion too. I just think that Bastion.
Bastion,
was like
Bastion was kind of like tail end too. Like Braid was early, and I do think of like Bastion and Fez as being maybe like the last. Yeah. Wait, Bastion was earlier or later?
No, I think it was later.
It was
2011.
Sure.
I guess it's only a year.
Yeah. But like Spelunky and Bastion are kind of like in my head, like kind of around the same way. But yeah, all of these kind of like share the same place in my head of just like before there were like 1,000 indie games coming out. There really were just these like tentpole ones, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think Limbo was able to catch that wave, and not to say it wasn't good, you know. It was actually pretty different from anything visually or, you know, that anything was coming out then. But it generated, I read this online, but it generated $7.5 million in revenue and was the third highest selling Xbox Live Arcade game. And to be fair, like this was before like full releases were coming to Xbox. So that would have been like third in downloads. But that's still like really impressive, that number. Yeah. So Microsoft actually partnered with Playdead to make Limbo, but Inside was self-published, which, you know, makes sense considering it made them $7.5 million, you know? They're just like, we're good. We're going to take our time.
But then they still were exclusive to Xbox initially.
But the window was like super small. I thought it was, in my head, it was like a year exclusive, but it was like a month or something.
Really?
Wow.
I felt like I had no access to that game for the longest time.
You can double check that for me.
I like that.
You can double check that for me real quick, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the same thing as Limbo. Limbo was quite a bit of time, but I thought maybe it was both. Never mind. I don't know. You have to double check that. But the point is that, yeah, they made enough money to just self-publish. And I mean, if Limbo launched in 2010 and it was like that was like a 6-year development time for what is a 3-hour game, you know? So they were really able to take the time. August 23rd.
Yeah. So not that long after. Weird.
Yeah, like a 3-month period. I know. In my head, it was like a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I thought about it. In my head, I'm like, well, when I think of indie games on the Xbox One, all I could think of was, there's, there's Inside and there's Cuphead, you know?
Yeah.
Like, those are the big indie games in a generation where Sony and then later Nintendo were just pumping those out like no one's business. All right. So it was announced at Microsoft's E3 2014 press conference and was released in June 29, 2016. So like 2 years later. The notable staff is Arndt Jensen. He is the director, and he also is the studio head and directed Limbo as well. So a lot of between their first and second game, it just looks like they just went straight into it from there, because there's not most of the staff that was working on Limbo just went straight to Inside. And I think you can see that like in the art direction and gameplay. Like, those games might as well be sequels in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think they chose to not call it Limbo 2 to just to make it more welcoming to like newcomers and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it is visually distinct enough and like mechanically a little more dense enough to grant. I mean, all like the mind control puzzles and stuff. That's way more than you ever did in Limbo.
No, but like, and look, because there is a mind control mechanic in Limbo, is there not? I remember there like the maggot, right?
But you weren't controlling it. It was altering like what, like it would like plant itself in your brain, and then it would alter like which directions did what. I think so. You would go right, and then it would go left instead. kind of thing.
Okay, weird.
That's how I remember it, but I might be wrong.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
it's been over a decade,
Because it also had like a gravity mechanic in that game too.
Yeah, late in that game, you would like fall and then be able to change which way you're falling. But you didn't actually control when it changed unless you were at like a terminal.
Right.
But it could change on like a timer as well in those sections. So I think there was some depth there.
And, speaking of mechanics, Jeff Carlson, he is the designer of most of what we're talking about. And I think, between both Inside and Limbo, like there's some really unique and a lot of varied ideas, especially in Inside, where I feel like every 30 minutes you're doing something different, It's very dense in that way. And he's currently working on Cocoon, which, if you remember, was
trailer.
Yeah, that was one of Josh's E3 games there. And so, that's exciting for someone who was pretty enamored by Inside. So Martin Stig Anderson is a composer. I wonder what I couldn't figure out is if he did the sound effects, because there is some like pretty striking like ambient stuff going on in Inside. But what really caught my attention was the sound effects. Like how tactile everything sounds.
Well, you can hear your heartbeat in like the first half of the game. I know for sure. Like I was just constantly wearing my headset. I was like, I was like, am I having a heart attack? And I was like, oh wait, that's in the game. Okay,
and I'm fine. The breathing too. Like you can hear like him like losing his breath like while running.
Yeah, and really well just done. Because the soundscape is so stark, like there's not a lot of music. It's very quiet. Like you really notice those small touches. But like, I mean, like you know what? It almost wanted. I played it on my PlayStation this time just to do something a little different from my first playthrough, and it was maybe one of the first times I haven't actually been that enamored by the DualSense. Like I don't sit there and be with. I'm not like, I wish this had more DualSense support, because there's only been a few games that I think really have done it really well, like Ratchet or Astro,
Mm-hmm.
But this game, I was thinking, I'm like, man, this would have been a great game for the DualSense. Just the way everything sounded, like the sound made it so tactile, like grab stuff or climb up a gate.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I just jumped on a pile of dead pigs.
Yeah. I mean, think of what they could have done at the end of that game with the DualSense.
Oh, goodness.
Think about it. So but I did not. I'm willing to bet he did a lot of the sound effect design work there as well, and that's super important to that game for me. Yeah. It's awesome. And then there's Dino Patti, which is the executive producer. He left pretty much after this game and sold his shares to the director.
Yeah, so he had 49% of the shares alongside Arndt Jensen. So they were like the two co-founders originally.
Yeah. I mean, he probably came out pretty well at the other end because, for all intents and purposes, both these games did very well and continue to sell very well.
Well, he took his money and he founded Jump Ship, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Do we know what they're doing?
Somerville? Is that what it's called?
Oh, Somerville. Yes. Yeah, because it's on my list. It's literally on my list. My fantasy list. Yeah. Somerville looks cool. It's not like a far. It does. I don't look at that and be like, that's the guy who did Limbo and Inside. I look at him like, oh, that makes sense. Has that vibe, those vibes. But game came out on the Xbox One, came out to the other platforms, and I have the review scores in front of me, and it did pretty well. Like its initial release on Xbox got like a 93 out of 100 on Metacritic. Anything above a 90 is pretty up there, like percentile wise. So it's pretty universally praised. I don't know if I've heard anyone to say, I didn't like the game, because it's just, I don't know about you guys. I think it's just like the perfect length for what it is. Even if stuff did make you frustrated at points, it's like in the distance, less than 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can argue with me later about that, I guess. But I tried looking at sales numbers. I did see Steam charts, and Steam has it between like 4 and 5 million just on Steam. But of course, that's over like years and years of Steam sales and Humble Bundles and all that stuff. So who even knows what that means, like money wise? But for sales, all I saw is that it sold 1 million units as of 2017. So it cracked over 1 million on its first year of release, and it did release a little like July. So yeah, mid year. So it's pretty impressive, honestly. Especially as like the indie market was already getting pretty crowded around that time.
Yeah.
So it was no slouch. People really do love Limbo to this day. You know what I mean? So yeah, I want to know what was your guys' experience? Because correct me if I'm wrong. I think I was the only one that played Inside before the podcast.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was your guys' like experience? What do you know about it? What do you think about it before you started playing?
Back then, I just what I would do as a kid, because I didn't like have like a lot of income to just buy the games, I would just watch a lot of Let's Players play like whatever game was hot. So Inside was one of those games, and I'm pretty sure I watched either Jacksepticeye or mostly Jacksepticeye like play it. So I knew like a lot. Sadly, and I even knew about the ending. But what's even weird is that I actually didn't know the full length, surprisingly. So when I actually got to the game and like played it for myself and like experienced all of these like climactic moments, I was taken back because like there's a lot I missed. Especially Video Game Donkey's video. I remember very vividly watching that one specifically when it came to Inside, and boy, he really does like gloss over a bunch of stuff that happens in the game, and it feels kind of rewarding because like, oh, I'm surprised. Like I didn't know this would be a thing.
Cool. Yeah. Off topic. It's funny that you say that's how you experience a lot of games when you're younger. I think that's totally like a generational thing.
Yeah.
Because when I couldn't afford a lot of games, like my access to other games was just friends and their games, And so there was a time where I'm just like, that's so dumb. Like, why would you watch a game? Why wouldn't you just play it? But over time, I was gonna say I've turned on that opinion hard recently.
Yeah.
I think there's some. Yeah, I think there's it's valuable to be able to experience a game that you necessarily know you wouldn't be into, but you could see someone else, play through it, and yeah.
Danganronpa is a good example of that kind of game. You can watch someone play that, and you'd be fine.
Yeah, visual novels are a lot easier to, I guess, you don't really need to experience the button inputs and everything if you're just interested in the story, obviously.
Yeah,
totally.
I was gonna say though, I didn't really ever watch playthroughs because I wanted to experience it for myself, but I had a really bad habit of just rewatching trailers that I liked. Like I remember watching the Dark Souls trailer over and over and over, and I never played Demon Souls. Even after I bought Dark Souls, I just kept watching the trailer because it did something for me to like experience the hype behind the game. It gave me this weird sense of nostalgia that I don't even think I should have had. I don't know. That's how I like to experience games. No matter, regardless if I could afford any or not, I would just watch trailers on like IGN or whatever, GameSpot.
Is that you saying that's what you did with this game? You just like rewatch the trailer?
I didn't. I you know what? I think I saw one screenshot of this game before going into it. And I thought I had it spoiled for me like by a podcast I was listening to. They were talking about like the news around the sex toy maker. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Colton.
And I was like, ew, what? And but they just kind of like hinted at it, and I was like, okay, that's kind of spoilery. But
the real doll people that made
and I was like, okay,
they made the huddle.
I was like, great. I was like, great, you spoiled that for me. But I think when I actually got to the end of this game, I was like, oh no, they didn't spoil everything. There was more going on there. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable.
Yes, we will get to that ending. It's still incredible.
I'd like to clarify something though. I mentioned how I watched Jacksepticeye play the game. I realize now most of my memories come from Donkey's video of the game. So like,
you said Donkey.
Yeah, I did. But like, I said Jack and Donkey, but I'm like clarifying. It's mostly Donkey that I remember like knowing the game from.
Yeah. What about you, Colton? What do you know about Inside before
Well, I mean, I watched the trailer when it came out, and I saw screenshots, and I saw, I think the big moment. I was like, whoa, IGN gave that a 10 out of 10. I was like, oh man, I loved Limbo. I have to play this game. And then the same kind of thing happened, kind of like what Josh said. Like I was kind of waiting for it to come to PlayStation, and I swear I thought it was a year.
I thought it was longer.
Yeah, well, it felt like it was super long to me. But then by the time it came to PlayStation, I guess I just kind of forgot about it. But I did. I was very interested in the game when it came out, and then I just like a lot of things, I just get distracted, and it took me to being on this podcast for me to play it. Which, I mean, it happens that way sometimes, I guess. But I guess I really wanted to play it. That's what I'm trying to say.
It turns out all right.
Yeah, I forgot to mention. I've owned this game for over 2 years, maybe 3, and I just never get around to playing it. So I don't know. I can't really blame anything. I bought it, but I just didn't get around to it.
Yeah, I didn't know it was on Switch. I found that out recently. It's like, oh, when that happened?
I almost bought it on Switch because it's on sale for like $2, and I was like, that's amazing. And then I was like, wait, I think I own this game already. And I did.
Wait, it's $2?
It was, yeah, it was on sale. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah,
Man.
I know. There must be a Switch sale going on because I thought of a game I hadn't thought about in a while, and I went and searched it on Switch, and it was like $2, and I'm like, well, okay, and download. But yeah, $2 is like when you use your gold coins that you like built up. Don't even think about it. But awesome, yeah. I'm glad that y'all finally got a chance to experience it, and from the sounds of it, it doesn't sound like it was too spoiled before you came. But I would say, I don't know if you guys would agree with me. I feel like it's a game you really do have to experience for yourself.
Yeah,
it would be a really difficult one to spoil just by like listening to what happened.
It's difficult to explain lore-wise. Like, oh, what's this game about? Go play it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just one of those games where you tell people like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about the ending. I want you to know it's really good. It does some really clever stuff, but you need to play it.
Yeah, literally.
So yeah. But cool. Yeah, no, I saw the original E3 trailer. I wasn't following much, but the minute it came out, I was like, I must have downloaded it like, the day it came out and beat it probably the day after. So yeah, it was fun for me because then I got to listen to my podcast and hear them freak out over that ending without trying to spoil that ending. So it was a cool experience in that way. But all right, let's jump into it. So, the beginning of this game, for me, the most striking thing right away was in my head. I knew that it was like a 2D game, but whenever I thought about the game, like rethought about it in my head, it was like a 3D game, like a quasi like 3D, and it just shows like how well the depth of like the environment is. Even though it's a 2D game, it really like tricks your brain.
Yeah, I felt a couple times like I was going to be able to turn down a road and follow a truck. I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go this way. I was like, oh, wait, no, I can't. I just got to keep going to the right.
Yeah. And I can't think of too many other like 2D games where my brain automatically thinks like, oh, just go up. Once you know you're like on a 2D plane, you don't ever think about it. But this game really, and they do some really clever stuff. Like things that come after you, they don't just come from the left or right of the screen. They can come from the background, and stuff. And I think that's the kind of thing where I'm like, oh wow, this is different. To this day, I think that's still pretty unique.
Yeah, I think that's what allows it to kind of be scary. I mean, I don't think it'd be very scary if everything was coming from ahead of you or behind you. It's those jump scares can happen from any direction, so you just don't know. Yeah, no, for sure. And sometimes it gave me vibes. This is a weird poll, but every once in a while it'd give me like Shadow of the Colossus vibes, where you have that huge landscape and you're just like this one. They have that scene where he goes back up on the shore, and you just see that huge, massive building. In the back, and it's very lonely and stuff. It actually gave me some like Shadow of the Colossus vibes, which is always good. So, but let's talk about that wood sequence. And
can I deposit that I think Inside has the scariest dogs in video games?
I was gonna say, I have written in my notes. Dude. I wrote down. This is why I'm okay killing dogs in video games.
You're gonna love Last of Us Part 2.
I don't know if it's because your character's at a set speed, and they're just so much faster than you. The way they're animated, obviously,
whenever they catch you. It is.
Yeah.
It's like graphic. You just like watch them rip this kid apart.
Literally so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
We trained for this.
And also, like I said earlier, whoever did their sound design, like the sound design in those dogs are like, they're scary because you hear them in the distance. They're really good at doing like that, like a good like echo reverb. Like before you even see them, you hear that barking, and you're like, oh god.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, literally.
So yeah, and I wrote down my notes that because you're at like a set speed, they're really good at making you like barely get away from things, like designed, but you feel like you did it. Mm-hmm. Like you're like, I did it, but even though it was like designed for you to jump at that cliff the moment they caught up to you. But it works.
Or you have like old man responses like me, and you just get killed 5 times before you finally get it.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite things about like just from the get-go in the woods itself is how like you can already feel fear and like coming from this child, like how desperate it feels to run and move, and like you can see his head just snap to like the environments and like to people walking while you're running by, because well you obviously see him as trying to get away from them and not being caught. And I immediately noticed that, like that attention to detail in the animation, and instantly fell in love. I was like, this game is already gonna do like, it's already gonna be like high am I like ranking for this game already.
I think the masked kidnappers at the beginning are some of the scariest antagonistic figures in the game.
Yeah, and they're creepy.
Oh, and like as you mentioned in the background, like enemies like coming in from like not just like the left and right, coming in from like all the way over here in the front of me, like me the player, like looking into the screen, like coming from over there, like not like left or right, over there, a dog like palling to you, like ready to just like claw at your neck. Oh my god, it's scary to think about now, because like you don't like I didn't really think about this kind of stuff like while playing, but it makes so much sense, and it's just so scary to look at.
Yeah, I think one of the first like real striking things that happens, the dudes with the mask, but you see them loading like those like zombie people onto the truck before you know what they are, and they drive off, and you're like, what is going on? And clearly they're after you, and yeah, that's just like a really good first sequence. And again, you just really get to see like the depth of like what they created with like the foreground and background. Like,
thank you. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's just a lot of like depth in the game.
I find it striking. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Go for it.
I was gonna say I find it striking. Like the moment I found like this game was like not playing around wasn't actually with the dogs, is when you get caught the second time, and like it was like when you pass like the van to like hide in, you can literally get shot at. Like you get shot at if you just like pass that van. And like what's up?
And I was just kidding. The first time I got shot, it scared the heck out of me. That's one of the worst jump scares. Like, they got guns? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a child, and you're just gonna shoot at me?
I mean, there's the idea of like dynamics and like a soundscape, because there's not like a bunch of rushing music and stuff. Like when those shots go off, they're like the only thing, and they're just like bang, 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 and then that's it. It's like you're like Jesus. So yeah, clearly. Limbo did this too, where it's like surprisingly violent, because you're in both. You're playing as like a child, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's still shocking to like play a game like that and just see a kid like be strangled or shot or had their throat clamped down on by a dog or whatever. You're just like, okay, we're not toning down the violence here.
Limbo's like tarantula scene still haunts me as a kid. Oh my god!
Just getting like speared right through the chest.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And Insight's a little more photorealistic, so at least they're not doing like the dismemberment thing that Limbo did, because that would just be a little too cartoonish, you know. But next sequence. You guys have anything else to say about the woods?
Great.
Like our initial.
I thought it was a great intro to the game.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I hated it.
I would say you hated it. So, okay, there is something I want to say about the beginning of the game that they do teach you, and I think Josh hinted towards this. You're either going to like appreciate this or be annoyed by it. But a lot of what I said about Limbo does still apply to Inside, where they want you to learn by trial and error. Right. Like, you know, your first reaction to everything is just going to run to the right as fast as you can, you know? And it's not until you're caught that you realize, oh, this is what they want me to do.
Exactly. Like being shot when you pass that van. You're supposed to stop at the van, waits the car, like, passes by a little bit, and then run it, gun it. Like,
right. But there has to be such a small percentage of people that did that first time. They want you to have those like shock moments at the beginning for sure. And then later on, like we were talking about the dogs, there's that scene later on where you have to go between like two, like there's a gate in the middle.
Yes.
And you have to keep
keep pulling the planks. Like, gotta keep going back and forth to juke them.
Oh yeah, that scene is like terrifying, and it's long too. You're like, I don't think I can take much of these dogs anymore.
Yeah, this kid is braver than I am. I'd have had a heart attack by now.
But the thing I do appreciate about Inside is its length, and that anything you were annoyed by, or you know, once you're like, okay, I think I'm done with the dogs, like you almost don't see them the rest of the game after that. You know,
the submarine. I was so annoyed by that thing, but then it didn't last very long. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh. Wow. Okay. Here we go. But we're skipping probably. I mean, that's the shocking. I think the most like early shocking thing was okay. So after the woods, you move on to the farm, right? And I think you do some like light puzzle solving in that barn.
They introduced the mind control device thing, right?
Yes, a little after the barn.
Oh no, that's the city, right? After the farm,
or it's okay. You're right. It's like a steel factory. I'm thinking of. Yeah,
but there is something like for some reason, like the birds are like following you. Like there's that one puzzle where you just shoot the chicks.
Yeah,
at the hay bell,
which is a weird puzzle. But yeah. I'm like, this is weird. This is a weird puzzle. You're shooting chicks.
I thought it was going to go so dark. I thought it was going to put them in a meat grinder. And I'm like, oh, use this spewed guts to shoot over the hay. And I'm like, oh, no, they just get sucked up and throw out the hay. I was not expecting that.
I feel like they give you a false sense of security. You're like, oh, this game's not terrible. It's not totally awful. They didn't kill the little chicks. And then you meet that you go through and you see like all those dead pigs lying around, and there's these big like parasite looking worms.
Yeah, one of them like takes over one of the pigs and charges at you. It scared the crap out of me, man.
Yes, that was the first time. And it's not even like the pig itself. Like the pig is kind of disturbing and loud. Like everything else, the sound design is like terrifying.
Right.
But it's the moment where you figure out the puzzle, jump over him, and you pull that like parasite out of the pigs, out of his anus, and he makes that squealing sound. And I would say, like they make it pretty clear early on. It's like, oh, this game is violent. Like it can get violent in places. But that's the first time they show you like the body horror side of this game. Is when you pull that parasite out, and you're like, oh, that's nasty.
I think it's interesting to note that parasite, once like you yank it out of the pig, the second time the pig charges you, it just immediately just like stops everything. You get like the choice to like, or you not a choice. You get like the ability to just like move the pig to like wherever you want, but that pig is just still. That pig is like fatigued from just that parasite. And it's just so interesting because like you can see like all the corpses, a lot of the corpses have those maggots like squirming out of them. Like I'm like looking at like footage right now and seeing it. It's just so interesting. And I think what I find even more interesting is how this early on game, like probably 15 minutes into the game, you start realizing that it's awfully empty, just like left barren without much of a reason.
Yeah. Well, you can obviously like tell like it's some kind of like weird post-apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah,
some like industrial.
Stuff's not cool. You know?
Things are broken
very
down.
Like, like the next section, is that city, and it's very like Half-Life 2 feeling. You're like, what's going on here? But before you move out to the farm, I think that's after you fight the pig. That's when you hit that first like mind control device. And I don't know.
It sounded like that rail, that like rail cart puzzle, right?
I would say right now. I was gonna say that's where the game sold me. I don't know. There's something so snappy about the way you control, like the way the animation works, where they walk forward and your character is just doing these like super animated, like walking animations and stuff. It's cool looking.
I disagree. This is the moment where I was like, if I wasn't playing this for the game club, I would stop here.
Why?
Really?
I hate this type of puzzle where it's like, oh, now I control this other thing with my magical mind powers. I'm like, boo. I was like, if this is the rest of the game, this is going to be the worst game I've ever played.
Yeah.
Is it?
I liked it.
Well, no, because it didn't last that long. The mind power thing kind of fades away.
It does, but there's a lot more left of that later on in the game.
Well, it evolves, right? You don't need the helmet anymore.
It doesn't become like how you solve the puzzle.
It's all very thematic too. I like that about the puzzles in the game, that it's not just a puzzles for the puzzle's sake. It doesn't just teach you like a new like mechanic. It like something happens to the kid that the kid's doing in the puzzle that's like kind of deepens the story or the plot a little bit more.
I agree.
And that stuff's very clever.
I would say that sequence, so the first sequence, and then the one where you have to go on multiple levels with the elevator and do all of the puzzles there to get the like large group of people onto the pad.
Yeah.
I hated that section. Maybe my least favorite section.
I think I had a harder time originally. Obviously, you play something and it comes back to you pretty fast. So I didn't.
I knew how to do it, but it annoyed me. I was like, "Great, now I gotta go to this." I remembered where everything was. Like, I go to. And
I totally get what you're saying, because that's why I didn't ever finish Limbo. So I was like, I don't want to sit here and figure this out. I just want to keep going, To me, I granted I didn't get as far as Limbo as you guys did, but I just felt like they upped their game even to how like intuitive the puzzle design was too. Like, it's interesting, but it's not like logically it usually makes sense, It's not like a leap. Like, how did I ever know only thing I ran into, and I ran into it again, was that submarine part where you're supposed to get out of the submarine.
Yep.
I never even thought to do that.
I was just sitting there parked next to it, like, how do I get past this blockade? I don't get it.
Yeah,
I wandered all the way back. I like searched the whole area, the whole open like water area. I'm like, there's nowhere else to go. I just had.
I didn't get stuck on that part. I got stuck on when you're trying to like outswim that thing in the water. There's one where you have to open the door and then you have to swim back up. And then I had to. I kept trying to swim under the door, but then I found out that you have to go down in the water, open the door, come back up in the water, go over to that other part of the water,
so like loop around,
and then come back and then close the door on the I got stuck on that one more than any other puzzle, I think, in the game.
Yeah, and I think this game you can really think of it almost like in set pieces, like the woods, the pig, like the mind control section. And I think one of my first like really like a moment that's like really striking, like visually striking and mechanically interesting and stuff is. So obviously there's those people with the masks that like belong to some kind of like cult or company you don't know at that point. But once you get into this city and you find yourself like in the warehouse where they're like corralling these people that are under mind control. Do you remember that part where you're pretending to be a zombie?
Yes. Spotlight spot right on you, and you gotta be as like careful as possible.
It's super uncanny because as like these zombies are walking by and they're like kind of like, it's not like it looks like they're both testing them like almost like a facility, like almost like a factory for humans.
Yeah. They're like running them through like a QC line.
But why there's like families standing there watching.
That's the really unsettling part.
Weird.
You see the families and people en masse. It's And later on, I did kind of figure this out, but it seemed like almost like an upper class, lower class thing. Like these are like the elites.
Yeah. The way I read it is like they were trying to sell these slaves kind of to the rich people. They're like, look how well they obey our command. Look how they turn around and jump. And that's kind of just how I read into it. But
yeah, super unsettling. But that scene is really good. Just the way it's all laid out and the way it happens.
That was my favorite part of the game up until the ending.
Oh,
that whole game. I kept thinking, that was such a good part of the game.
Yeah, that's a cool part. And then from there, you did explore the city before that, and you did a lot of like mind control puzzles and stuff. And I think it's like visually interesting. But after that, I think that's when you like go underground.
Yes, and you drop down to like into like the water.
Yeah. And I didn't quite catch this until I watched some like theories later, but one of them theorized that that everything is sinking underwater, like the world is sinking pretty much. Because there's a lot of water, there's a lot of like shores, there's something going on there that why this facility is all underwater.
Global warming.
So yeah, probably. But because I thought when I was thinking that was some kind of like parasitic like infection that happened, and that like at some point the corporation figured out how to like take control of them, and it was kind of like a corporation like took advantage of it, and they can control the world pretty much. That's how that was like my interpretation of it.
Yeah, that makes the connection between the parasite because like. Those are there for a reason. Those little wiggly white things.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't really come up again, as far as I could tell. It was like one or two scenes. They were wiggling.
I was almost thinking that maybe, like the parasite was kind of halfway in the pig, and it made him kind of wild and uncontrollable. I was thinking like, what if those parasites are just in all those zombies?
Yeah, because like when you're like at end game or close to end game, and like you're much more underwater, and you're kind of dealing with like the gravity mechanics. You can see like the bodies are like, I guess, hanging upwards have like little like, worms in them too. Like, and it makes you think, is this?
Oh right, yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
because what you could think about is like was this like an early experiment for mind control?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of my interpretation of it. It's a bit both like the end of the world and like a really like gross parasite.
It's kind of like they're harvesting the power.
Yeah.
Or like they figure out how the little worms do it.
Yeah,
that's like the weird mermaids.
I read those as just like child experiments, like
early experience of like becoming like a mine hive.
And I didn't make this connection myself, but. Like I said, a lot of theories saying like, hey, the world is like global warming, whatever it is, but the world's going underwater, so they were trying to make like humans that could breathe underwater or survive in that like environment. And so, and you do see like a lot of wires. Like at one point, you do see them like covered in wires, and obviously there was some sort of experiment. But that leads us on to like that submarine part. Like the submarine puzzles are what they are, but that first time you meet one of those things and it just like grabs onto your sub and starts tracking it.
Get that window.
Yeah, you're like,
stop punching it now.
yeah. And I would say that's one of the more violent deaths in the game, where it's just like strangling you underwater. That's like, it's like multiple phobias are happening all at once. You like fear of water, small spaces, monsters. Yeah. So I played. Speaking of which, did you guys all beat it in like one session?
Yeah.
Yes,
I did. I didn't expect to. I was like, all right, I think I have an hour and a half, and I was enjoying it so much that I sat down for like, I think it was the 2 hours to beat it.
Yeah, I beat it
in 2 hours.
Yeah, I beat it like less than 32.
It was something like that.
What?
Maybe it was over 2, but it wasn't.
Oh man, it was like 3.5, 4 hours for me. You're crazy.
Yeah, 2 hours and 35 minutes was for me.
I was so aggravated with some of these puzzles.
Yeah, it was a lot shorter for me because I had done those puzzles before, so it just kind of like clicked back into place. It's like, oh yes. But so I did it in 2 sections. I think I played just before the underwater section, like the subsection, and it was interesting because Sam was with me, my fiance, and she watched everything past the sub part, and then she grabbed the controller and played the rest of the game. The last 30%.
Nice.
Oh, really?
So I got to experience watching someone kind of like play and experience a good portion of that game like in front of me, which was a neat way of doing it because I'd already played it.
I wonder what she thought about the ending.
Oh yeah. About that. We'll get to that. But after that, I see the order. This wouldn't have been the order in my head, but after the underwater sequence, is that the point where does the underwater sequence end when you like drown and get dragged under by one of those experiments?
Not the first
one. No.
It's later.
You go back up to the surface and you go through the mines, which is when the mind control helmet detaches and you start like messing with like the mine hive like physically with them. Like,
are you able to control them? Are you able to control them without the helmet, or do you have like a detached helmet?
You have a detached helmet. At this point of the game, you have a detached helmet in the mines.
Yeah. My favorite part of that puzzle platform is that last dude that he's not even moving, like he's broken. He's had to push him off the edge.
I think he's dead.
And me too.
Well, I guess
I don't know. It's lying there.
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell with the brainwash people.
Yeah, I almost feel like some of these guys are dead, and the only thing controlling them is parasites.
That's a good point. I think you just needed his body weight to be on the bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Threw him off.
So yeah, that those puzzles are what they are, but I do like I think there is kind of like a weird humor to the game sometimes. Just the way they're all animated and bunch up together, and like
it's creepy. You're weird.
You know what? I
agree. It had a little bit of a humor to it.
Yeah, you know that what's that one game? Not Fall Guys, but the other game where you do puzzles, but you have that like loose control.
Oh, Human Fall Flat.
Yeah. Sometimes they remind me. I'm like, did they watch the animation of Inside? And I'm like, we should make a game where all the characters look like that.
Right. So it's just a bunch of gang beasts running around.
Yeah, totally. But one thing that did strike me early on that I forgot to mention is that this game could like come out today and still be just as impressive as it was.
Yeah.
Like just because of the animation work, like you can tell that. Hey, like games are not made like this normally. Like you don't spend 6 years on a game and come out with a 2.5 hour game. But you can really tell where their efforts went, and animation is just one of them. Everything animates so incredibly smoothly and well. Like I don't. Usually when I look at a game, I'm like, oh, that's running at like 30 or 60. I have no idea what this game's running at. Everything just looks so buttery smooth. It's crazy.
I now that you mentioned that, I'd love to now touch on my favorite, probably my favorite, area in the game. It's after the mines. It's the shockwave environment.
Oh, I was saving that.
Dude.
Yeah.
Can we talk about it?
Well, first, let me just talk about the group of people. I just think it's like the animation of them all lifting you up. It's just really impressive that they can animate that many people like grouped up together.
Oh yeah,
and like it just seems like technically really difficult to do.
Right.
Yeah, it looks really natural.
Yeah, it's just really crazy looking. So I'm just endlessly impressed on how everything is animated in this game and how smooth it looks, and it's really pretty game. But yeah, my Izayah, continue. This is my favorite section of the game.
So after the mines, you stumble into this area where it's very vast and just big. It's a shockwave environment where basically every few seconds, a big pulse just ripples the entire air and like environment to the point where it can be fatal if you get like hit by that wave. It's like feeling like something like tripled with sonic boom. It's impressive and is a bit of a storytelling like to show it, but I want to touch on the animation part of it because the animation part is just so smooth.
Yes.
Like Troy said, dude, you can see he's like, I'm like,
everything in that area is like on hinges or loose. So every time that shockwave hits, the entire environment just like goes, you know, it's like really incredible looking.
There's these like really tall, like I won't call them light poles almost. They're scattered across the entire environment, and you can see them just go like bounce back and forth like an antenna, and it's just so cool. And I find even more fun that like right when you have like that like spinning what is it? It's like it's supposed to shield you from like the shockwave, and it continues to spin like 360 always. It still shakes, like despite being still like a big mechanism, that is shaking because of like the sheer force of this thing. It's amazing, it's impressive, and it's genuinely fun. Like it and like even if you get killed by it, it's like wow, that was like amazing.
Really violent still, you know, like Jesus.
Yeah, and you know, like, I think. Like up until that part of the game, I felt like I was starting to get an idea of like what the world was like. I was like, oh, okay, I feel like they're building this like, or this is the type of world that they're trying to tell me, you know, it exists in this game. And then that happened, and I was like, what is going on? I have no idea.
Throws you off entirely.
What I do like about the shockwave section too is the lead up. If you notice during the platform puzzles, you're hearing the pulses.
You're hearing it.
Like from far away, and you're like, what are those? And the closer you get, and there are two sequences in the game where remember I said it's just like very quiet and there's like a lot of dynamics in like the song, but the way they pulse like a synth, like that synth with the pulse of the beat or of that like shockwave.
Right.
And stuff. It's like a really like cool synesthesia like moment with like the gameplay. Like it'd be really hard. I get why they did it too, because it'd be really hard to judge when the shockwaves came, but they put music behind it so you can kind of like count the beats and like go like, okay, it's gonna go now because it's gonna like blah 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 blah. You know.
Yeah.
So the whole soundscape during that section is incredible too, as well as visually. So. It's just, I don't know. It's them flexing every muscle in that one scene. It's really cool.
The world building is minor in this scene.
I have no idea what's going on though. That's an experiment.
I was going to say, it seems like this has got to be some sort of experiment. But where are we? So this is just past the mine.
Past the mine and deeper into the facility.
So this is in the facility. Okay, so.
It's one of the only sequences where it's like super like daylight too. Like you got like come into the sunlight.
I don't think it's sunlight. It might just be like some sort of spotlight or something that's on you.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it now. It's more spotlighty. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was gonna say, so it is probably an experiment. So this facility, is it like for like military weapons? Is that what they're doing with like?
It seems like some kind of weapon.
Like, mind control, and then this weird shockwave thing, like
maybe a way to fight them. I don't know.
I don't know either, because like you can clearly tell it's abandoned because the dummies in like in the second part of the shockwave scene, you can clearly tell they're abandoned. Some are on the floor, and like and already the place just looks like a mess. And when you actually exit the area, you can see like an abandoned truck still open, like just down there, like a van, and it just shows like this is like another one of those like quote failed experiments versus like a maggot.
You can see the experiment too. Like at one point they have all those test dummies in like that train rail looking thing that you walk by and they just all explode. It's kind of cool. But you know what? I think just like Izayah did mention, it's just a fun sequence, like gameplay wise, because I don't know what it is. I don't even know what this is called. But I like when games do this sort of thing. Like Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze has like these sections where you hide behind barriers while waves come out. Spoilers for Shadow of the Colossus. Not really, but the last boss, the last Colossus of Shadow of the Colossus has like a moment like that where you're running between cover and there's just like these huge explosions like coming at you.
Yeah, big like, meteorites.
I kind of just like how cinematic all that stuff. Or you know, or even like I think Last of Us 2 and MGS5 have really good like sniper, like dodging out of sniper fire like scenes. I'm a sucker for that sort of stuff. I don't know what you call it, but I like it.
Just kind of like a duck and cover kind of scene.
Yeah,
it's just really suspenseful. Like you feel the threat. It's probably the most threatening thing you can do is like just stay in cover. If you get out in the open, you're dead.
Yeah, and like yeah, it gives you that sense of like urgency and like fear itself. With like Shadow of the Colossus, a perfect example where you're supposed to slay this Colossus, the final one to release Dorman, and it's just insane, dude. Like I remember like feeling so scared because like that can kill me, and I'm like going underground just to try to get closer to this guy. I love that, and thank you for mentioning like the quiet scene too, Troy. That's another great example in itself. It's just so fun. Oh my god, dude.
yeah. It's a really good sequence. It's a standout, other than the standout sequence. You know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. You know, before we even get to the last section of this, you know, watching Sam play and stuff, I was like, you know how. There are some media, it's like really hard to figure out, like, okay, when is the climax of this story? When does it like all come to a head and then start going down from there? And this game is just so definitive, like it just has such a definite climax. You're like, oh, it's going down. You know? In the most like unexpected, shocking way possible. But after the shockwave section, you have that underwater lab where maybe my favorite puzzles are in this, and that's where they're blocks. Where they're playing like with gravity and like the water and stuff.
Yeah, I like the yellow blocks that you use. To,
like, yeah. Those are cool.
When you detach them, it's like, oh great, I can actually like do more with this.
but you're right, like it's a cool section.
Yeah, totally. And I do like those puzzles where you're like timing. I like puzzles where you time different things and you watch it go.
Right.
And you're like, that was cool.
Like the
I feel
platform.
like Breath of the Wild does like a good amount of stuff like that too. And yeah, I like those kind of puzzles. But also this is where I think you mentioned it earlier, Izayah, where you start seeing like those like kind of zombie parasite humans, but they're looking way less human.
Right, like they're just like clumps.
They just look like clumps of flesh and limbs.
And you can see them like struggle.
Oh, like, wait! Is this? I think either before this or this. This is a big moment in the game where
we skipped a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we did.
This is where you get drugged down.
I was gonna say, yeah. This is the part where you get drugged down and drowned. So those weird like mermaid siren looking kids come back, and you're doing these kind of pretty clever puzzles
this time. I don't know if they're naked the first time.
I think they are.
They are.
But yeah, you've been like escaping them the entire game. You do like a few really pretty clever puzzles to get away from them, and then finally like there's like it's not even a cutscene. It just happens like in a flash, and you're like dragged under.
That happened, and I was like, oh, I did something wrong. I guess I died. And it just kept going. I was like, okay, I get it. I died. Can I restart now? And then I finally realized. I was like, that was supposed to happen. Okay.
The mind control thing is like plugged into your stomach or something. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
At that point, Sam was still watching me play, and she was like, are you going to press X? And I'm like, I guess I can. Oh, it doesn't do anything. That's the scene where you get dragged under, and she like I say she, I don't know what it, I'm not gonna gender whatever that thing is, but it pulls you under, and it like puts you it puts the like wire into you, and you hit the bottom, and you like regain consciousness, and you can like breathe underwater like they can.
I was a little confused by all that.
That one's hard to parse out.
It's hard to parse out because like originally like with like the other scene with like when you get the siren, it's like you die, like you feel like, oh, I wasn't supposed to be caught by that, but then like you get to this scene and it's like that completely like flips like the book on you, and like
a part of me wants to say that like because there is a secret ending, and there is like an essence of like themes of like control. It almost makes me think that this one was like controlled or different. You know what I mean?
Right.
Interesting.
Because the rest just attack you on sight, and this one like does, but then like kind of helps you in the end. I don't know if you guys caught it. I don't know if this is the same one that helped you, but you can kind of see in the foreground if you swim around that there's one just kind of like floating, looking kind of dead. So I don't know.
Weird.
I was thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking maybe like someone was controlling it, and they like loose control, and it just like kind of did what the zombies did, and just kind of started floating. Kind of just being what it is.
Weird?
But at that point, this is where you can you have the ability to swim, and there's this. I think, like I said, sometimes this game does stuff with scale. And there's that scene where it just keeps zooming out and out, and you're like swimming in the kind of this like vast underwater section. And I think visually, it's just an awesome scene.
Yeah, and I want to point out: did you guys notice how there's like a bunch of videotapes at the very bottom when you like first wake up in the water?
I saw a bunch of like VHS tapes.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that important? I noticed it, but I was like, huh.
It was just so weird out of place to me. I want to bring it up because like it is just there, but we don't know why. And there's a TV too. There's a TV like right there beside it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was people there. They watch videos, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, to the game's credit, if you had something like that in any other game, you'd just be like, eh. It's just like set dressing. In this game, you're just like, what does it mean?
Yeah. I think it adds more layers to that theory where it's like this was like all like sinking underwater and stuff. Like it all just kind of like it came down. So like places that are like there are things like placed underwater where it obviously shouldn't be in, which like adds more layer to that like theory again.
Yeah, and I think like everything in this game, I think if this team would have had like a motto, I feel like less is more. It would be a pretty good motto for this game.
Yeah. Right.
They just do so much with 2.5 hours a game, and a lot of games and a lot of things I don't like about modern games is them taking mechanics that are pretty shallow on like a surface level and just running way too long with it. Like I get it. But this game, I feel like, it's not like it's like the most in-depth mechanics. It is still pretty just like simple. Move this there, like kind of just figuring out A to B stuff. But it's so varied and it doesn't overstay its welcome. And it's just, I think it's just like kind of a pretty brave design choice, because there's so many games that would be like, well, we have to, I forget how much this game was, but I'm sure it was like $15-$20, maybe more. And they're like, well, they're paying this much money. We have to at least give them like, 15 hours.
Yeah, well, there'd be so many more rooms with the same like repeated puzzle structures, just like slowly advancing you on how like complex they are. But this game keeps it really brief. They teach it to you real quick, and then the next like two things is advancing the puzzles to what they think needs to be the highest level of difficulty, which I think is not that high. It's not a difficult game, and that's to get you through the story. If you were just this isn't supposed to be a challenging puzzle game. Otherwise, you get really sick of it and quit before you get to experience the full story.
Right. Yeah. And I think the puzzles in the game reinforce themes. And I think that's the point of the puzzles at the end of the day, is not like you said, Josh, it's not just to have like progressively harder, more intricate puzzles. It's like puzzles that progress the theme. And once you kind of like, you get like a nod and a wink, you move on, Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end, I think it's really awesome that they start combining like some puzzles in some way. Like you get those like those upside down gravity levels, and you're also controlling dudes like without a helmet, by the way. Now you can just do it naturally.
Yeah.
And they're throwing you, so you're like combining different elements all into one, and it's still reinforcing the themes. It's just really, really good design and thematic work. It's cool.
Yeah. Good direction from what would it Arndt Jensen is his name? Yeah.
I mean, like I said, there's not a lot of games that are made like this one. I know we're not wrapping it up, but I feel like just like the game, once we talk about the ending, that's the climax of this episode.
Yeah.
Just because, you talk about that last, but it's just I can't think of too many other games that have like the same design philosophy or are just so committed to it. I'm like super hard pressed, other than like something like Journey or something like that. But
like not as like intentional, like fully intentional, where like inside is like everything like is like again committed to the plot and the lore and like just like the theme of the game, like every mechanic and whatnot. Like I can't say the same with Journey. Journey is more of like you're literally going on a journey. It's not a lot of pulling and pushing per se.
True. But yeah, playing it again, it's just really, to this day, it's so impressive. And man, yeah, what a game. But we're not done with it yet. Because after the lab, you come up back to the surface, and it does another really crazy pan out where you're like approaching this facility.
Yeah, and like the mobs behind you too, like just following you like the hive mind would.
I have a question. At this point, did you guys think you were coming up to the end of the game?
Yes, because
like within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a pretty strong inclination that I was close to the end.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Is this where we come up the staircase and we're in like the place with like a lot of weird like cubicle things?
Yes, like a lot of like labs and
then
there are people
they're running to that window.
Yes, and even like when you approach, as like Troy says, as you see the camera pan out and you get this large, expansive look of your surroundings, you can see in the background 2 workers like running, like really running to the facility, thus adding this sort of like sense of like suspense of like something's here, and like they're excited.
Something's going very wrong.
I thought it was really interesting whenever you run in, like and like whenever you run into them for the first time, like one of them runs by you and looks at you and kind of hesitates and then just keeps running.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting. I was like,
is that the first thing in the game that like you see that doesn't like attack you on sight? You're like and then he just ignores you.
Other
and you're
than the little birds and the fish
and the window.
Oh, the fish. Yeah.
They literally just like gravitate to you when you sink down to the bottom. Like when you get that new the new ability, because like before then they just like spread out like you're a human. Another note to like about like the scene, Troy, right after you enter into the facility and like you pull that lever to get through like the bar door, you can see that like the phone is like hanging. Like the phone was literally left hanging on purpose.
Oh yeah. Well, and there's a part before you even reach the big tank where everyone's running. Like you can see people like running experiments. Like there's those like some like those zombies are in there and they're like
bloody.
They're like surgery rooms and stuff. And you're like, oh, some like real messed up stuff going down in this facility right now.
So I got a little bit stuck on the window where everybody's going to like look at whatever's going on. I thought my character was just too short and needed something to stand on, so I was trying to take that little rolling desk and like use it as a stool, but it wouldn't let me. So I was like, "What am I supposed to do?"
Yeah. And up to this point,
roll back to the ladder, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, and at this point, Sam had been playing the last couple of chapters, so she played the entire like coming up from the water to the end of the game. At this point, so I was watching. But yeah, there's you finally get to like because there's just like you said a bunch of scientists like running ahead of you and like scrambling and knocking over chairs and you're like running with them. And then what did you guys think was going on when you went up like to the glass with everyone else and they just like did not care?
I had a toy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not thinking that. However, I did hear about that when it came out, but it totally left my mind until I saw the thing. And I was like, "Oh my god, that's what I heard about."
Yeah, like that's gross.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I beat the game that I knew what it was called. It's called the Huddle.
The Huddle?
I
call it the Hive Mind.
Worse.
The Huddle. So yeah, all the scientists are like freaking out over something. You don't know what it is. And there's this really cool puzzle before it's like one last puzzle before you get in. It's that one where you have to like I forget exactly how you solve it, but it's like a suction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really suck you, it blows you in actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It, like yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Are we sucking? Are we blowing? What are we doing here?
Enough about the Huddle. But yeah. You so you do this one last puzzle. You get sucked up into the tank, and Like you come in and I wish I could see your guys' reaction to seeing that thing for the first time if you hadn't seen it. But it is just a grotesque ball of flesh. Like
appendages just sticking out. And,
like breathing.
Oh man.
Yeah, no. I watched Sam do it and she was just like, I don't want to go I'm not going near that thing. She tried to swim away and I'm like, oh, you're gonna have to. And she's like, no, I'm not going anywhere near that thing. It's disgusting.
Oh my god.
I just remember like all your clothes get ripped off and I was like, that's weird. And then
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I see the plugs in the wall. So I go there, I go that way, I go to the left, and I'm just like, why can't I pull these out? Like it clearly looks like I was supposed to like.
Yeah, I tried to pull them out first too.
So I sat there for like a good 2 minutes trying to do that, and I was like, that's weird, and I just kind of went the other way, and I was not like paying any attention at this point, and I just like swam like right past the blob, and then like my eyes adjusted, and I was like, oh, it's the thing, it's the sex toy.
Oh my god.
Yes. And there's like 4 plugs on it. And it's already writhing, and then you figure out pretty fast, like you're like, oh, I can grab onto these.
Yeah, I was like, oh, now I'm strong enough to do this.
And so, yeah, you're the boy, your character, I think you pull 3 plugs.
You pull 3 plugs, and then
you're going for the 4th, and then he just like it starts moving, and it just sucks you in, and then the next thing you know, you're just moving this 10-foot wall of like flesh and limbs.
Oh my god, it's insane.
This is the most fun I had in the game so far. I was just like, this is fun.
You go back to that handle, and again, when I say like whoever did their sound design and dynamics, it's like coming out from water. Like you break up in that glass, and there's just so much noise. Like you can hear glass breaking, people screaming, like chairs, like it's the beginning of like the airport scene from Modern Warfare 2.
Oh my god!
Like all of a sudden, like it's like a really quiet, like thoughtful game. Even like the really loud parts, like the shockwave part, there's like a mood to it.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden, it's just like it lets loose, and it's just complete mayhem. Like
it's just chaos. Like
the sound design totally turns on its head, and you are just like. You pretty much are you can just move forward and you are just wrecking everything in sight in like a really amazing way.
Can we take a moment and just stop right here where like you drop down like 3 floors and you start like breaking into the what's it called? It's like when you have a display of an area or an environment that's like real and you use that for like maps like and like
like photogrammetry?
No.
Diorama?
Diorama, that's it. There's a diorama right there when you drop down and oh my god. There's a diorama right there when you drop down to the bottom floor that later like is like literally like where we end the game. And
what?
Yeah. Oh, do you guys not realize that?
It was like a map of the facility, right?
There's a map. No. It's the map of like when the game ends. It's where it has the hill going down to the shore with the spotlight specifically on the shore.
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm looking at it right now.
I don't know where are you seeing that at.
Here, can I share my screen? I have the footage right here.
Dude, hour 40.
Okay. I mean, we will get back to like this scene because there's some weird conspiracy stuff going on.
Yeah, it's so exciting, dude. Oh
that is cool. God. So while he's sharing that, I'll keep going. So if you guys notice, like at first, it's kind of hard to control it. Like it just kind of goes one direction, and you can't really control like its height or anything. It's just kind of clumsy. But as you keep rolling along, it starts like I don't know, like its motor function starts to get better. And you can like stretch upwards, do finer movement. I think there's that scene, like Izayah said, where you drop down and then you run through that food court. Everyone's just like running for their lives.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then at the end you body slam like the main scientist dude, like through a window. It's like another like real
great moment.
Yeah. And the game hadn't been like that bloody. But like that scene right there, like he just kind of explodes and you see his like there's like a stain on the huddle
Yeah.
for the rest of that section till you hit the water. And remember when I said earlier about their animation work? This thing is like the most animated thing I think I've ever seen in a game. Like
Absolutely.
if they told me that they spent the last 2 years just working on this like 30-minute section, I'd be like, you know what? That makes total sense. Because man, there's nothing that looks like this thing that I've ever played in a game,
Right.
Maybe I've seen some like weird offline renders of that sort of thing, but not like something you were controlling.
Yeah.
That's just impressive.
Like programming and animation, like it's crazy.
Yeah, the way like, especially once you were able to start like doing you start doing puzzles as it.
Yeah.
And you start like grabbing stuff and like it's like different arms are like passing off things to different arms and still rotating and running. It's
really good.
It's kind of a beautiful nightmare, that thing is. Really gross, but really technically maybe one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in a game. But yeah,
it's gonna be the next Smash character, I think.
I don't know why I've never heard that. That would be really good. Kirby would be like, yeah, I'm not eating that thing.
No.
Yeah,
I'm gonna kill God. I'm not killing that.
Yeah. But at a certain point, there's some weird things that start happening. Like Izayah said, there's something that shows you where you're going to end up in the game, like it was planned, which I did not know about till just now.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
But weird things start happening where in the puzzles you have scientists helping you.
Yeah, I thought that was really intriguing.
Oh my god, dude!
And this will lead. I'm glad you guys didn't watch that. Me and Izayah are the only one that like know what the secret ending is, because we'll wrap back to the scientists. But yeah, there's some really clever, cool puzzles because your dude can just like chuck things in the air.
Yeah.
So like, what was your favorite like puzzle in that section?
I really liked the flaming box, and you have to like throw it over the sprinklers and all.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The flaming box, you have to like, you get the box and you take it to the furnace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My idiot brain, I saw the furnace and I was like, oh, this is the end of the game. I'm supposed to stuff myself in here.
You're like, please.
I'm burning to suicide. I need to die.
That's exactly what Sam did too. She's like, I want this thing to die. Kill me.
Kill me now, send my suffering.
But then I was like, okay, I guess that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm gonna go find something. I was like, oh, and that box.
I can't remember. Was it a doctor that turned the sprinklers on once they realized what you were trying to do? Or did it just turn on?
No, the smoke from the thing.
Oh, you're right. I'm dumb.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's so that puzzle. I think that's like animated super funnily, where you're like just like you're like huffing it and like chucking this box like 30 feet in the air while catching it.
You're standing in water, so you have to catch it.
Yeah, it's like one of the most ridiculous looking things.
That might be my favorite puzzle, though. That was really good.
Yeah, I really like the one puzzle where he said, I don't know if this was right after, but it's one of those pulley boxes where you have to like throw it up to a scientist. He pulls it and you like throw it in the air and it floats up.
It's a little earlier, I think, after the.
No, it's right after the fire one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you're just so like just booking it through this facility, and it doesn't look like everyone's in on it. Like there are some people clearly upset by what's happening.
Yeah, some of them are trying to stop you, while others are just helping you.
Like there's that one scene where you're like on a swing, and one of them's like hooking, like trying to hook the swing so you can climb.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I don't know if you guys remember, because it just happens like in a flash, but at the very end of this section, like you fall down and all of a sudden you're in a spotlight and there's like a crowd of people.
Right. Yeah. And
like kids. It's like that family from the beginning scene.
And like some babies. Yeah.
Yeah, what's up?
Really weird. So so that happens and then it just drops you into a tank.
You gotta pull apart like the tank itself too.
Right. And then
I was really mad at that. I was like, they trapped me. I thought they were helping me. They trapped me.
How dare they?
I thought you loved me.
Yeah.
The scientists were helping you. The people in charge were trying to stop you.
It's really hard to tell. I don't know, man.
It's tough.
I didn't trust anybody.
Even with the secret ending, I can't explain everything that happens at the end.
Yeah,
but there's like good theories. But I think right after you do, pretty soon after you get out of that, that's when you like. There's a really cool sequence where you go through that wood area, like you barrel through and you just fall.
Yeah,
yeah,
like really fast and really violently.
That was another good, really. The sound on that sounded it's good.
Oh yeah, like you just hear it's just like a slap.
Yeah, if somebody showed me like an audio clip of that without me ever playing the game, I'd be like, that sounds like a giant flesh ball falling down like a.
You know what it is? It's like someone held like 5 really nice mics to someone's wet back and just had someone 5-star them.
Someone's wet back.
Yeah. like really just 5-star them really good.
You really do come down on like the forest like so hard, dude. It's insane.
But yeah, you fall down the forest and you just like hit like real hard, and then you finally rest on the shore, and it's just kind of like you just stop moving and then zooms out and boom, credits.
Inside, yeah, like that's it. And
it is just like one of the most like audacious, fast moving, weird scenes at like in any game, and they just put it right at the end. Like there's not even time to like let's think about what just happened. So yeah, I mean, that was not spoiled for you, Colton. None of that ending was.
No, not the ending. I heard about the big flesh ball. Whenever that company came out with that thing, but all I heard was that thing at the end of Inside, and when I heard that, I was like, I thought Inside you play as a little boy. What the heck is everyone talking about? But I made sure to not look into what everyone's talking about because I wanted to play it eventually.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So I was still pretty spoiler free.
Yeah. But yeah, what an ending to a game. Yeah. Just wild and oddly fun, like Josh said. Yeah. Like there's just something like everything else in there. I said it's real tactile. It's just, man, it just feels really good just to like barrel through like glass and walls and scientists.
Gotta kill as many scientists as you can.
I feel like it's really difficult to over animate something and have it feel good. And somehow they like were able to do both. Because there's games that like are really over animated, but you don't get that really like immediate like good feel on the controller. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like games that like you can move really fast, it's not going to look very realistic. And then games that really over animate, you know, they look really good, like The Witcher or Assassin's Creed, but you don't get that like speedy, fast feeling. So for them just to be able to nail both, again, just shows how much time and effort and just talent that team had, or the cohesion. But yeah, so I mean, what are your guys' like overall thoughts when the game ended? Like,
I was pretty relieved that it was over. But I was up pretty late, and I was kind of falling asleep until I did merge with this flesh ball, and then I was like, oh my god, this is amazing! My eyes just like opened up wide. I was like, this is great, exhilarating. Yeah, so I came out liking it a lot more than I thought I would. Like about halfway through the game, I was like, oh, I have to swim now. This sucks. But by the end, I was like, okay, that was definitely worth playing it. I think I like it a little bit more than Limbo.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, I think I definitely like it more than Limbo, and I really liked Limbo. I think I played that game like 3 times. I played it on the PS3 twice, and then I think that when they brought it to iOS, I played it again. I really liked Limbo. I don't know. It just had more depth, you know. It had me thinking a lot more than Limbo did. Yeah. Like I kept trying to piece together what story that they were trying to tell me, you know, very subtly, and I really enjoyed that part. I thought the puzzles were a little bit more fun, and there were some frustrating ones though. But I really think that ending it made the whole game worth playing. It was fun to experience that and be surprised by it.
Yeah. It's not often a game can just totally just like surprise you. I feel like that's one of those moments where it's just like, not in a million years could I have told you that this game was ever going to come to this, because again, like I said, it's just like a very quiet, thoughtful, moody, like clever game. And the end is just like pure anarchy. It's amazing. Yeah. But yeah. So let's move on to the secret ending. So, like I said, Izayah actually played it. I watched it.
Yeah, but okay. I'll give y'all the rundown how the secret ending works. The way this works is that you have to go about like you can replay the game by just going by separate sections. There's in fact multiple. You can like there's a lot. It's very well organized, and you can just go to any specific moment you like. And there's 14 of these like socket I kind of call them breakers. They're sphere breakers, and anytime you pull out the lever for it, it just saps completely.
They look like little antennas to me, like little space antennas.
I thought they were like power generators.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you guys ran into a couple of them.
I have as well. Yeah.
I did like 5 of them.
Yeah, I did
1.
There's one where you have to like have a torch. It's like a totally different mechanic where you have a torch and you have to keep dogs away.
Yeah,
weird.
It's really cool.
So some of them are like have completely different mechanics from anything you do in the main game. Even
I should have done them honestly, but I was like, if I don't see the yellow wire, I'm not gonna bother.
Right here, we're at the mines where you get a couple people pull out the plank, and you just come across this freaking torch, and you're just like, oh yeah, just grab a torch, and like you gotta like hold off these dogs. Oh man.
But yeah, there's these little puzzles, like little secret, like little satellite looking things that you pull the plug on.
Right.
And you don't know what they do. It's not immediate. It doesn't say like 1 out of 14. You know what I mean? You don't know. Most of the time I thought I was going the right way actually. And then I was like, oh, it just led to one of these. Okay. And so you hit those, like Izayah was saying. Izayah did because I didn't do all of them. Do a lot of them have those different mechanics?
No. So some of them are just like find Waldo essentially. Like second to last one, I believe it's like the one like where you first find an office in the facility, and there's a beam pillar, and if you just like while you're approaching the beam pillar, you can actually see for a good second a little rope. So like the idea is like get the bunch of people and like push you up there, while also getting them to get back up there and like push you back up as well to just get the thing in the first place. So that's not always like a new mechanic or just like a more in-depth puzzle than like the typical ones you do in main game. Sometimes it just has to do with like you finding it or just going outside the box.
Okay, so correct me, we're probably good on those because they're just like secret, like little side puzzles where you get to find these like little satellites. Right. But the real interesting stuff is when you collect all of them. So what happens when you collect all of them and beat the game, Izayah?
The last one, specifically the very last sphere you find, is a 14th one, and it's right where you about to enter like the bubble, like the huddle. You find this big, like a bigger version of all those. And when you yank it out, you have to have all the other ones like already get yanked out. But when you yank it out, it all goes dark, and one little light is like flickering on this like checkboard, and it says 2, and it's basically telling you go back to the number 2 where you found it, and so you do. When you do,
so you beat the game, and you go back to like the new game, and you go back to the second one of these you found, right?
Yeah, essentially, you just go back to the chapter where it took place because it all saves.
It was like near the farm, right, where the pigs are.
Right. So when you go back to the farm, the cornfield, which is where the second one you find anyways, you already find it there. Here, let me grab that footage for y'all just in case. Sorry.
Well, don't worry. So you find that second one, right? And there's like a hatch.
Right. So you go down the hatch, and to the left is a room. Here is a room where basically it has it's a red room. It's a red room, and it has some photos like hanging about, and it has like that shock thing, and like I mentioned before, it's that same like secret thing, right? And on the right, you find a lever, like this like little like 3-way like little like notch. And the way it works is that when you put it to your left, top, or right, yeah, here on my screen, left, top, or right, it plays a sound. The way you get through this entrance is that in the city, do you remember the first time you like jump over like a gap and like you climb up like that like the pipe? If you go down on it, you'll find a radio there actually, and that radio plays the combination. So if you memorize like the sound of it, play it on this thing, it opens the door. As you go through this area, this like little what's it called? Yeah, the corridor.
Like a layer. It's like corridor into like a layer.
You find this room. It's one of the mind controlling devices hooked up to a bunch of wires, an unreserved seat, and a bunch of screens like just lit up. And if you look at in the foreground, you can see like those like secrets you found, just not lit up or attached to anything. It's a desk, a chair, and you can see your character as you run by, look at it just like for a brief moment. Then as you approach the very right, you'll find a little vent. Pull that vent out, you find a massive plug. Pull out a little bit, and you'll see a big flicker across the entire room, and you'll see like the character like look over there, like, oh, okay. Then you pull it out entirely, yank it, and everything goes dark, and your character limps over, like one of the same mind-controlled dummies you used for like the entire game.
Yeah. So like what it's kind of saying to me is that like there was someone under there controlling the kid, like with the helmet. And so and those little, why I read those little like things that you unplug as like satellites, it was so he could like keep connection like with the kids. And why I said it was interesting that the scientists were helping you, it kind of a lot of theories are that this was like a scientist, like a disgruntled scientist within the facility that was in league with a bunch of other ones that wanted the kid to get to the the huddle and like enter it, and so they could control it.
Interesting.
For like whatever purposes. So it's the whole idea of, of control again, that the idea was that from the beginning, this kid was being controlled like everything else in the game was. So it's cool.
It's really cool. And there's
like a really cool ending.
It sounds confusing on the surface, but like when like you give it more thought, it does make more sense. Cause like that diagram, what's it called? Diagram?
The diorama.
The diorama like literally depicts the ending. The ending itself, which
like it was planned.
It was planned, like literally, and it's crazy to think about because like you wouldn't think about it would be planned. Like why would all this be like just like from this beginning like already in set? But it makes more sense when you have that theory of like of a scientist being under like all this, and like either if it's like against the corporation or with it, it all like kind of ties together.
Yeah.
As if like from the beginning, even if you do get into that clump, like that clump, the huddle, and you roll all the way down and you reach the shore, you're not free. This was just part of the experiment.
Well, I just don't get what the purpose of going to that one spot and stopping. Like, I just don't get why it stops there.
Yeah, I don't quite understand everything about it either, other than like I do understand that the ending, it implies that you had been controlled, the entire time.
Sure.
And that obviously whoever was doing this wanted the kid to get to the huddle, and they wanted it to get out for whatever reason. And why is probably, I don't know if why is like a super important question, but it is one that I don't have like a direct answer to.
Right.
Yeah, because like throughout the game, you just keep guessing like, why are we even coming here? Like, why do we need to?
Or you think about like why the kid just keeps going forward. Why doesn't he like turn back? Or
literally.
Why? What's like the motivation?
After playing that, it looks like he knows where he wants to go. So like that whole theory that the scientists have this all planned out.
Or that like, all of a sudden that like one, the one like siren child decides to help you. You know what I mean? Like that could just be like another way of, getting them closer to the goal. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting theory.
Yeah. What's it called? It's a whenever you God dang it, like a heist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like a weird crazy heist, and yeah. But another what's another game that it reminded me of? I don't know if you guys played through all of Super Hot, but Super Hot has that whole like theme of like control.
Oh, man.
And like what's going on and stuff, and Super Hot actually has a really cool story.
Is that worth playing the not VR version?
Oh yeah. The original Super Hot is awesome.
Okay, so it was originally not VR.
Yeah, it's originally not VR.
Okay,
and the VR version's great too. But yeah,
I own I own it on the PlayStation. I just
Super Hot is like one of those games where it's difficult but once it clicks and you get it, and you almost feel like, oh, I am like a Matrix god.
Is there a lot of like child fatality in that one?
No.
Okay, cool.
Unfortunately. Yeah. What other game can we play? Okay, Plague Tale. That's our next game.
Oh, Jesus.
I hope you guys like rats. But yeah, that's Control, and I'm super happy that you guys were able to.
That's Inside.
Control. That's
Control.
You got the theme of the game and the name of the
game. Yeah. Well, actually, honestly, Control like visually has something. I could see it, but a lot of floating, a lot of scientists.
Yeah.
If you think about it. But yeah, I'm glad you guys were actually able to play this before anything was spoiled, or I feel like it's been long enough that it's not in the conversation all too often these days. So
yeah,
you guys were probably saved anyways, unless you were like going to search it out for yourselves. But yeah, any closing thoughts?
This game had me on my toes.
I liked it. I'm now even more excited for oh my gosh!
Cocoon?
The next game, Cocoon. Yeah.
Cocoon.
Or Somerville.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, personally, I'm more excited for Somerville because Cocoon looks a little too puzzly for my poor brain. But it does visually. Cocoon is doing some stuff. I'm like,
that's the thing.
It's really crazy.
You said it was the level designer, like the lead game designer from this is going to do Cocoon,
right? And he really clever stuff, so I'm sure it's going to be pretty good.
It's just not going to be as sad, probably.
Right. Which is why I'm going to Somerville. Did you see that dog? That dog's going to die, or maybe the child or the wife. Someone's going to die, and it's going to be sad. And I can't wait. I actually, speaking of which, that's on my fantasy list, and that is not coming out this year. I'm just going to say that right now. Somerville is not coming out in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have I have one last thought to say, and it's just that throughout because I was recording the gameplay, as you guys know, I did all like the B-roll for it and got to experience it while recording it, and I just kept asking questions, and when a game has me that engaged, where I just keep guessing more and more, like what's like the purpose of like all these like pieces, it genuinely excites me when I actually do find some answer, and I loved playing Inside so much, and talking about it has been so exciting in itself. Just talking about it, they really did nail it with this game. It was like what, 6-year development? Is that right, Troy?
Yeah, it's a long time. I mean, that's assuming they started directly after Limbo, but
right, yeah,
I'm sure they were thinking about it, even before Limbo was released. But yeah,
phenomenal game, and I don't know if there will be a game like this again.
I mean, yeah. Maybe. I mean, this team is still making a game. We just don't know what it is, and it's been a very long time. So,
it's been a minute.
Do we know who the designer is for them now?
No, I don't. But I read something like that they have Epic support. Like they're doing this on Unreal, and they have Epic money involved.
Yeah,
okay. So it sounds kind of bigger. Bigger
Fortnite
budget
crossover.
Oh my gosh!
Can you imagine like a 50-foot
huddle in Fortnite?
A 50-foot huddle. Everyone has to shoot.
Goku,
if you ever wanted,
I
was gonna say if you ever wanted, if you ever want to see Goku Kamehameha a huddle, here's
that would be
chance.
really good.
give me a Thanos movie with Goku and a Kamehameha, dude. That's insane. That's sick. All 7.
I'd be all for it. But
I bet you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me. It's late for me, which means it's later for you guys. So it's probably time for us to sign off. But thank you guys for joining me and playing through the game. And thank you for listening. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.